Back at the America First warehouse. Has it been an awesome day hosted by AMAC? And on Wednesday, how many of you am I going to see in Nassau Coliseum? Oh, yeah. How exciting is that? You know, we're just about 50 days away from this massively important election, and there's all this talk about these battleground states elsewhere, yet President Trump knows where he needs to be Wednesday night, and that's with all of us on Long Island. Can't wait. Now, I've had the opportunity to be able to work with AMAC in their efforts in battleground states elsewhere, and we hear a lot about the same 7 states ultimately going to decide presidential election after presidential election. And if the election's today, President Trump is polling just ahead in enough states to win the Electoral College. But I think it's important to always campaign like you're behind no matter what. Any poll says that we're up 2, we're up 4. It's better to just campaign like you're behind 2. And in these states, ballots are going to start going out this week. In Pennsylvania, they have something that you all know is called universal mail-in balloting. I don't think that universal mail-in balloting should be legal in any state in America, but you know what? In Pennsylvania, it is. I don't think that ballot harvesting should be legal anywhere in America, but guess what? In Nevada, it is. I think that every state should have voter ID. These are our principles. But when the laws are actually set, we could battle for what we believe the laws should be. If we make the mistake of boycotting the laws that are on the books, then what ends up happening is if a snowstorm hits Reno around that time to get out the vote in November of 2022, Adam Laxalt ends up losing a Senate seat, and that is one of the main reasons why Chuck Schumer's the majority leader. February 13th, there was a special election right here on Long Island. 7 hours of a snowstorm ends up hitting, reminding us how important it is to bank low propensity votes as soon as you can. Y'all are here, so I'm sure that you vote at every opportunity. There are low propensity voters in our lives, people who oftentimes make it a game day decision. And in Pennsylvania, there was also a special election that was going on that same day, February 13th. It was to decide control of the House in Pennsylvania, a pretty important election. And it was a winnable seat. We went into Election Day in Pennsylvania already down by like 60 or 70 points. You woke up, the race was already lost. In Pennsylvania, they have universal mail-in balloting. The ballots are going to start going out. And if we don't start getting the low propensity voters in our lives out to vote, we're going to wake up on Election Day and it will be too late. President Trump is out there campaigning his tail off across America. J.D. Vance is campaigning across America, busting his tail for this ticket. And they are right on the issues. You know, I watched the debate like all of you did this past week. And I put myself in the mindset of that undecided, independent-minded voter who's watching. You ask those voters, what are the issues that are most important to you? They're talking about the economy, first and foremost. Many are talking about the border, crime, and energy policy, and foreign policy, and more. And from one issue to the next, it is President Trump on the right side of it. It's Kamala Harris on the wrong side of it. We've had 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris agenda in this White House, and it has been a disaster. And every single time that Kamala Harris talks about what she will do if she is elected president, on day 1 she'll do this, on day 1 she'll do that. No, day 1 was 3.5 years ago. And you haven't done anything that you claim that you will do to fix the mess that you created. So that undecided, independent-minded voter who's listening to that debate clearly knows that it is President Trump who's going to secure the border. He is the one who's going to finish building the wall. President Trump is the one who you can count on to bring back Remain in Mexico, to support our Customs and Border Patrol agents, to make sure that something like Title 42 would have never been eliminated without a replacement, to get rid of catch and release. They talk about these numbers of people who are caught at the border, and they compare those numbers to when President Trump was in office. But here's a big difference. When President Trump was in office, he was sending those people back. Now, most of those people are being released into the United States. And the Democrats have been making a push to allow non-citizens to vote. We see that right in New York City. We see it in Washington, D.C. We see sanctuary cities emerging, sanctuary states emerging. And if you're like me, you're sick of reading story after story, day after day, of 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds being victimized, kidnapped, raped, murdered at the hands of people who should have never been in this country in the first place. We know why we're supporting President Trump. We know why we're supporting Republicans, to make sure that President Trump is able to get his agenda over the finish line. We don't want to deal with 3 impeachments in 2025. We want President Trump's nominations for his cabinet and for the judicial system to get through confirmation. Yeah, the top of the ticket is key. But right here in New York, we are a battleground. New York will decide whether or not this is a Republican House or a Democrat House. You all will decide. We together will ultimately be the difference between whether or not it is a Speaker Jeffries or a Minority Leader Jeffries. Now, I don't know about you, but I am thrilled that we don't have to deal anymore with a Chairman Nadler or a Chairman Waters or a Chairman Schiff. Do you think that what Jim Jordan is doing right now in the Judiciary Committee would have ever happened if that was Jerry Nadler as the chair? It would be the opposite. Do you think that any of these Ivy League professors would have been getting held accountable for an eroding culture on their campus if it was Democrats in charge of the Education Committee? Absolutely not. This is everything. But I'll tell you what we're hearing as we go door to door is that the economy is emerging by far as the #1 issue. Now, in 2012, there was a disconnect between the Republican Party agenda and the people. There were white papers, a lot of white papers. By the way, those white papers, in many cases, probably had a whole lot of good ideas mixed in them. But if the voters don't know how your white papers are going to improve their lives, those voters will have no connection to what you are proposing as your vision for America. Here on Long Island, if you were going around asking people in your life in 2016, why are you supporting Donald Trump? You're not going to get an answer like, I don't know, I don't like Hillary. Yeah, we got a lot of that. We don't like Hillary, but they were talking about building a wall, draining the swamp, making America great again, stopping Common Core, repeal Obamacare. The list was going on and on of what was being pushed as an agenda in 2016. People knew what they were investing in. In 2022, in that governor's race, we came close, and it was something that I believe needs to be a lesson learned for conservatives across the country, that ultimately the next level of engagement, of movement, if you want to create a movement, if you want to have momentum, it's not about what we are against. It's about what we are for. We were telling... Listen, Kamala Harris is bad. She needs to own her terrible record. We need to talk about why she would be a disaster if she was in the White House for 4 more years. The Democrats controlling Congress would be terrible. They would want to resist oppose, obstruct everything and anything. We need to talk about it. But the magic formula is telling people what they are investing in by voting Republican. Now, one of the differences between going with the approach of having a white paper and not connecting it is that voter at the door who cares about the economy, they don't want to talk white paper. They don't want to talk details of page 712 of your bill. They care about eggs, bread, milk, gas, electricity, housing. The reason why the economy is their number one issue is because this economy is not working for them. They aren't saying the economy is the number one issue because they are told that that is what they're supposed to say. They're saying it because it's as personal as it gets, and they do not feel like they and their family are in a better place than they were 4 years ago. Did any of you see what Kamala Harris's answer was in the last day or two to her first sit-down solo interview with a local ABC affiliate? She was asked about the economy and what her plans are. Can you name one or two specific components of your proposal to address cost of living? Anybody see the interview? She didn't have an answer. She has no answer. President Trump did it already. Y'all remember just before COVID hit, at the beginning of 2020, that was the best economy that I remember in my entire lifetime. And that didn't happen by accident. It was the product of getting rid of harmful regulations. It was a product of passing legislation that reduced the cost of living. It's about promoting energy independence. Costs were affordable. People were spending money. They were feeling good about the economy. Things were going well. The economy was ripping at the beginning of 2020. And Kamala Harris says, we're not going back. I'll tell you what, February of 2020 was pretty damn good. If our economy, if the cost of living could go back, if the trajectory of our country at that moment with the border becoming more secure, our energy becoming more independent, our foreign policy where we were ending foreign wars, not starting them. And we have to all go to sleep every night not knowing what tomorrow brings. Will there be a World War III taking advantage of a president of the United States who is vacationing more than he's actually on the job? And when he's on the job, he can only work from 10 to 4. In theory, although there's probably a few naps built in even into that, and the vice president is out on the road, and we're wondering who's running our country. I remember in 2020, I was asking if Joe Biden was elected president, who's going to be the president? And I would never get an answer from anyone, but it was a serious question because clearly Joe Biden wasn't up for it. And those on the left who were acting like all of a sudden at the end of June, we shockingly were stunned and surprised to learn that Joe Biden has deteriorated. We were putting up warning signs in 2019 and 2020 of what we'd be getting with a Joe Biden presidency. Gosh, I go to sleep as an American, as a veteran, as someone who cares about our country's foreign policy, not knowing and quite concerned that adversaries abroad are going to take advantage of this opportunity for them to seize on a vacuum that exists at the highest levels of our government. It is no coincidence that Russia goes into Ukraine after a fatally flawed withdrawal of Afghanistan. It is no coincidence that Hamas would go into Israel on October 7th. If President Trump was in office, Russia would have never went to Ukraine. Hamas would have never went into Israel on October 7th. China's aggression, Russia's aggression, North Korea, Iran. You know what doesn't get much attention is that about 3 weeks before the October 7th attack against Israel, the Biden administration released billions of dollars to Iran. I know that on day one, this president is ready to save America. And we have to send him a Congress that is ready to work with him. And there is a target across this country. We have a great chance with Bernie Moreno running in Ohio against Sherrod Brown. We have a great opportunity with Tim Sheehy running in Montana. Manchin stepped down. We're going to flip West Virginia. Mike Rogers running in Michigan. Kari Lake running in Arizona. Sam Brown running in Nevada. The list goes on. I have a feeling that we are on track to be able to wake up the day after this election with a Chuck Schumer getting ready for life in the minority. Now, AMAC's been doing these events around the country, Bootcamp for Boomers. And there are a lot of seniors who are quite motivated this year to do their part. We need to get more people to join AMAC. And we need people who have joined AMAC to maximize your effort between now and November 5th. You know, people ask me, what can you do? And there's, AMAC is recruiting. I'll tell you what, President Trump is recruiting. You get people to go to donaldjtrump.com. This is why I tell people to go to the website, sign up for Trump Force 47, donate $5 if you can. Get involved in local races that you care about. We have to be all in. And what concerns me is that some people are too confident. There's nothing wrong with optimism, as long as it's not an excuse for complacency. There are people in our lives who talk red wave, red tsunami, and don't do a darn thing to actually make sure it happens. There's nothing. I'm sure there's people in this room feeling confident, but you can't use it as an excuse for complacency. You ask me, I don't think that President Trump on July 13th dodged a bullet without divine intervention. There was a reason why he is still here. There's a reason today that you all are here. And it's not about just filling up America First Warehouse for an afternoon, 50-plus days out from an election, and then for all of us to go home and check the box and say we've done our part. We were at AMAC's event in the middle of September, so there's nothing else for us to do. No, we need to fill up AMAC's roster with more seniors in our lives to get active, and encouraging and challenging ourselves and others to do their part. New York is a battleground for the House. And we have seats all across this entire state where there are freshmen in tough seats, where we, conservatives, President Trump, the America First movement, is absolutely on the right side of the issues that matter most to the independent, undecided voters in those districts. But no one can sit on the sidelines. I've had a chance to campaign with President Trump. I was with JD a couple days ago. He was back in New York. JD was in New York on the 25th of August as well. JD was here on September 11th. I was with him on September 12th. President Trump, I was with him here on August 2nd. He's coming back this upcoming Wednesday. And there's a logic inside of a campaign office to never go to a blue state like New York. They might argue it's a waste of time. Last time the president called me, about 6 days or so ago, he wanted to talk about New York. And he wants to do as well as he possibly can in New York. That's up to us, ultimately. But I'll tell you what, if anyone was to argue that New York There are people out there who might say that New York is too uphill. This is what I would say. This entire ticket, in order to make sure that President Trump is able to get his priorities through Congress, it runs through New York. And his efforts in New York, at the very least, is making sure that his supporters understand how important New York is to President Trump. And we feel like we are standing on his shoulders, but really, if you think about it, in many respects, he's standing on ours. We have to do our part. I know that you guys heard from a lot of speakers today, and I know that through the years, you guys have invested a lot of your time, your energy, your principles, your patriotism, your love, an outpouring of support when these elections come up to be able to do your part. I have never referred to any election as the most important election of our lifetime. Why? Because if I say that this is the most important election of our lifetime, then a year or 2 or 4 years from now, if I say it again, you start sounding like a broken record and you start losing credibility. I'll just say that this is a pretty freaking important election, okay? And I want to do my part, and I know you want to do yours. I'm now an empty nester that started about a week and a half ago. My twin girls are now at college, and they're at campuses where I feel like they're going to be able to hold their own. They're not, on an island. They're not at, a Columbia or some of these other places with encampments and wacky far left liberal professors and eroding culture and foreign influence just screwing up the higher educational system. I want the best for my kids. You want the best for your kids and your grandkids. This is the first election that my daughters are voting in, and for many of you, you have voted many times in the past, and you have a lot of elections to reflect on, a lot of moments that you remember that were important to this country. And at America First Warehouse, as you look around you see a lot of flag, you see a lot of love, you see a lot of a celebration of our Constitution, of our freedom, of our liberty. And for our veterans who are out there who should be signing up to serve in a military that is focused on kicking ass and being ready for what is next, as opposed to being a social experiment. If you care about our law enforcement and our firefighters and our EMTs, for all those people who put their lives in the line with selfless service and dedication, they are relying on us. My kids are relying on us like your kids and your grandkids are as well. And if we do our part between now and the end of this election on November 5th, what happens is the fruit of your labor is that when we are watching TV, wherever we happen to be, the evening of November 5th, if we fight hard enough, if it is too big to rig, yes, the night of November 5th, we can watch Kamala Harris giving a concession speech. If we fight hard enough, doing everything in our power on November 5th, not the days to follow, not the weeks to follow, but if we make it too big to rig, we are going to send a Republican House and a Republican Senate to go work with the next America First administration in the White House. Working with AMAC, working with President Trump and his campaign, and this ticket running all across this state and this country, busting our hump between now and November 5th, all in. It'll be the night of November 5th, not the days that follow, not the weeks that follow, that we will once again have a greatest night of TV that we've witnessed in the past, because Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States, will be delivering a victory speech because he is soon to get sworn in as the 47th President of the United States to save America. Let's make this country great again. Let's do our part, working with AMAC to get it done. Thank you all for being here all day. Thank you to AMAC and America First Warehouse for your leadership. God bless all of you.